Welcome back to Success with Steven. My name is Steven Smith. On this channel, we talk about all things financial literacy. And today we're going to be talking about the secret hack to get automatic Capital One credit card limit increases with no hard check. And that's going to be the easiest way that you can get this done. And this is not going to be referring to the bucketing system or anything like that. If you want more information on that, I'm going to link a video here. Now, I've said in a previous video that Capital One is one of the largest subprime lenders in the United States, meaning it's more than likely 75% of Americans that participate in credit building activity will more than likely have Capital One as a credit card issuer, if not at this moment, at some other point in time. And my recommendation is always having between 2 to 6 large financial institutions on your report. That can be Capital One, as well as Discover, American Express, just to name a few. But today, the focus of discussion is going to be this strategy to get the automatic increase on your Capital One credit card limit. So let's get right into this strategy and exactly how it's going to work for you. Now, the first thing that I want to talk about is something that I think is very underutilized, but there's a specific way that you should utilize this, and that's going to be updating your income. So updating your income can warrant a credit limit increase. So if you've recently job hopped and you've secured a higher salary, or you just haven't updated your income information in a while, this is a very simple step to help raise your credit card limit with Capital One, and a very easy way for them to do it automatically. You want to consider that the 2009 Credit Card Act requires issuers to assess the ability of each borrower to pay before issuing a credit card or issuing a credit limit increase. Since that act went into effect, issuers have been increasingly prompting customers to provide or update their income information. You've probably noticed this through emails or notifications via the app, but they will prompt you to update that information. Why? It will change your debt to income ratio. Credit card companies, they're growing increasingly sophisticated, and they are using data-based underwriting so that no one's actually looking at this. For the most part, it's all done by algorithms, and it's all done by patterns that are based on your spending habits. So they are using credit bureau information and other public sources in order to qualify you for new cards, credit line increases, so on and so forth. However, they are reliant on consumers for data related to income. Hence, they are reaching out to consumers so that they are updating it frequently across all channels. Keep in mind, you are not required to respond to an income update request unless you're applying for something and then it's asked. But if you don't provide that income update, it'll be more likely that you'll become ineligible for future automatic increases in the future. So I do want to say, when you're filling this out, and at the end of the video, I'm going to actually take you through the steps of how to do this credit line increase on the Capital One website or through the app. You want to make sure that you are not just putting a huge number for how much money you make. For example, if you make $50,000, do not just put that you make $150,000 because you think that that is going to increase your limit, because that's not how this works. And I'll explain more as we go on. What you want to do, which will make more sense, even if you make $100,000, my recommendation is that when you first get this account, if you didn't change it yet, put that you make 50,000, even if you make 100. As time goes on, you can gradually increase this whenever you want to get a credit limit increase. So you can gradually increase it to, say, you make 60,000, then 70,000, then 80,000, then 90,000, then 100,000. You want to leave yourself room for growth. If you just say the information up front, there will be no need for you to actually update your income. And then if you try to update your income to 150, 200,000, that's where you're going to be subject to sending in documentation like tax returns or paycheck stubs. You don't want that. So the next thing that we're going to be talking about is low utilization, maximum usage, and I'm going to explain exactly what that means. So your FICO score assesses your risk based on information on your credit report. An important factor is the category amounts owed, which is utilization. That's going to be roughly 30% of a typical person's FICO score. So for instance, if you have a credit limit that's $10,000 and you're carrying a $2,500 balance, your ratio for utilization is going to be 25% because 2,500 is 25% of 10,000. Now, experts advise maintaining a ratio below 30% for optimal credit health. That's not my recommendation. I personally recommend 10% or less, and you can test this out for yourself. Use 25% of your limit, see what happens to your score. Next month, drop it down to 10% or less, see what happens to your score. I can guarantee with full certainty, you'll notice that your score will go up. If you do that, and if you increase it to 25%, your score will go down. I can, almost guarantee that. In general, it's better to have more available credit and to use less of it. Some people ask, why does it make sense to have such a high limit on your credit cards? This is why a credit limit increase does help. Having a higher limit makes it easier for you to sustain lower utilization. I think people have it confused that they think just because they have a higher limit means that they need to spend more. If you are somehow equating higher limit to you're going to spend more, you need to change your mindset, because I'm not saying that. That makes no sense. Just because you have it doesn't mean to spend it. It just sounds like you may not be disciplined enough to handle that much credit line. And that's a totally different conversation. Now let's talk about what I mean by low utilization, but maximum usage. And again, while that may seem like a contradiction, it's what you need to do in order to get a credit line increase with Capital One. Most of the approvals with credit cards and limits, they've been automatic based on spending patterns and habits. Spending patterns and habits. Capital One is a big issuer that does this. Most of what they do is based off of systematic algorithms that just look at your behavior patterns and the way that you spend. You want to use a card frequently, meaning 10 to 15 transactions in a billing cycle, but you also want to make payments throughout. So an easy way to accomplish this is using your credit card to pay all of your bills. We all have bills that we have to pay every single month, right? Even if you have a low limit, let's say you have a $1,000 credit card or $500, but your light bill is $400. Well, you're going to pay the $400 on that credit card. Then you're going to pay the $400. Treat it like a debit card. As soon as you use it, pay it. And you're going to do this with gas. You stop at a gas station, you fill up your tank. Hey, as soon as you fill it up, go ahead and just pay it. Same way you would have with a debit card. Same thing with, all your other bills. You want to do this so on and so forth. But right before your billing cycle date closes, make sure you only leave a 10% balance left. Okay? If your limit is, $10,000, you want to leave $1,000 and that's it. You can do less, but you don't want to do any more than that, because that's what will get reported to the credit bureaus when the cycle date closes. 1,000 out of 10,000, and then so on and so forth. If you have 500, then 10% of that, $50. You get the drift, right? In that cycle, you've probably used your entire limit 3 to 4 times, which shows a high spend frequency as well as a high frequency of payment. But it also shows that you're responsible when it comes to paying your balances. This benefits you and Capital One in these two ways. They make money from interchange fees. The more you use your card, the more money they make off of you. Some people get really personal when they talk about banks and talk about they're not giving me this or that. You have to understand, all we're doing is putting information in places so that these systems will automatically do what we want them to do. No one's personally attacking you. No one's personally doing anything. This is a relationship that's mutually beneficial. That's it. You spend money with my cards at a high frequency. You pay me back. I make money off interchange fees. In turn, it's going to send a signal that I need a higher limit based off of my frequency of spend and frequency of payment, because I'm spending 3 or 4 times my limit and making 3 or 4 times the amount of payments. So the reason why they would want to raise your limit is because they use information based on consumer data. This is consumer data. The more your limit is, the higher your limit is, the more likely you are to spend. Since you've shown them that you're responsible, they're not going to mind doing that. These are all things that you want to keep in mind and things that you want to do. So, income, you want to update that maybe every 3 to 6 months or so. You also want to use the low utilization but maximum usage. That means frequent spend, so paying for something on the credit card, then paying it off immediately so that limit is available to you again. And then you want to keep that up as often as you possibly can in the cycle date. But right before the cycle date close, you only let 10% report. That is going to be the best thing that you can possibly do and will greatly increase the chance that you're going to see a credit limit increase on Capital One. But not just Capital One, this actually would apply with most of your other financial institutions. Just keep in mind, in general, it is better for you to have more available credit and to use less of it. Requesting a higher credit limit can lower your utilization ratio by providing you with more available credit, so long as you don't use the higher limit as an excuse to overspend. Okay? You never spend what you don't have, which is why I'm saying if you're going to spend something, pay a bill and then pay it right back. You'll never spend anything that you cannot pay back reasonably. Next strategy that you want to implement is raising other limits. Now, this is very important, and it was something that I learned in real time, but Capital One will look at the limits you're receiving from other banks to determine how much limit you should be approved for. I learned this when I got my secured card with Navy Federal. This is why you want to pick one bank that you can get very high limits with. Navy Federal, if you have a flagship credit card or you work your way up to it, you can start with the secured card, do a product change to a flagship when you get more than $5,000 for the limit, and then that card can go up to $80,000. Reason why I like that strategy is because you're going to keep this card so you won't have to open new accounts, shortening your account history. And because you get to raise that limit every so often, you can then use the limit increase from there to kind of go around and raise the others. So how I learned this was I got the Navy Federal secured card $200 limit. After about a year, I was able to graduate that to a $2,000 limit. I still had charge-offs on my credit report, but they still allowed me to increase that limit. When I got that limit increased to $2,000, I started getting credit limit increases automatically from my other cards. That was crazy to me. I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Here's another thing that I recommend. Let's say you don't have Navy Federal. You can do something like Ava and Kickoff. These are both credit builder accounts that report as revolving balances, meaning they report to the bureaus as credit cards. Ava, for $35, you can get a revolving balance account, which is like a credit card, and it reports $3,500. Kickoff, you can get $2,500. So you can use both of these to then get credit limit increases, to then get increases with your other accounts. Now, I can't say for sure that Ava and Kickoff were the reason why I received that, credit limit increase and graduate, but doesn't hurt to have that. And what I'll say is if you do that and then you're able to get, to $10,000 on a card, then you can stop using the credit builders because now you have such a high limit on one of your accounts. You can then use this to get other cards and raise the limits on those cards as well. So just, take this into account. I just highly recommend that you start on this path and pick a card that's very, very easy for you to increase easily. And then you'll notice that it's easier to get that credit limit increase with Capital One automatically. Now, I do want to take you over to this Capital One page that's just showing you how to request a credit line increase. So when you sign into the Capital One homepage, you can go to account services, or you can go to the section with the gear that says I want to, and then you can go to account services, and then you can go right here to where it says request credit limit increase. And then I'm going to show you the information to fill out, and then we're going to discuss each section by line, just because I want to talk about the importance of it. Now, if we did everything prior, I believe that is the most likely way to trigger an automatic increase. But then I also want to talk to you very quickly about this manual increase and just what you want to do when you fill this out, because the way you fill it out can determine if you get approved or you get denied. All right, here is a screenshot, and I want to go over this line by line. So request credit line increase. Asking for an increase won't affect your credit score, and this is only if the automatic increase does not actually happen for you and you would like to take matters into your own hands. So I believe total annual income is the first line on here because I do believe it is the most important. If you have not updated yet, this is your opportunity to update. And remember what I said, if you make $100,000, when you go here, I recommend just gradually increasing where you started, just doing it a little bit at a time. Now, alimony, child support, or separate maintenance income need not be revealed if you do not choose to have it considered as a basis of repayment on this loan. If you have a spouse that you live with or even roommate, you can actually take their income into consideration and you can add it onto here if you would like to do that. My recommendation is that you increase this in increments so you do have room for growth over time. Now, employment status. I myself am self-employed. Here's my recommendation for this. If you put that you are retired or you put that you are self-employed, it will be seen as a higher risk. You will more than likely get denied or get a very small increase if you do this. Now, if you are a self-employed person, I have another video where I talk about how to actually employ yourself. And I do that, and I have my own paycheck stubs and I do my own payroll through ADP. I recommend checking that out. I was actually able to get a bonus for cashback. This let me know that I'm being recognized by my financial institution as an employee of the company that I own and operate. Now, occupation, you're just going to put whatever it is that you do. For your monthly mortgage or rent payment, there is a debt to income that you would want to look at, and just understand that your total income, your employment status, and your monthly mortgage or rent does say a lot about you, who you are, your debt to income, and they weigh a heavy factor in this approval process. You also want to put how much you plan to spend each month on this credit card. I would make sure that you put whatever it is that you actually plan to spend. Normally put 30% of whatever it is that my limit is. That way they know what I plan on spending. I put the maximum desired credit line. Again, I'm not going to tell you what you should put. I'm just going to tell you to put whatever it is that you would like to get. Now, if you put a very low limit, they can counter offer you with something lower. So for me personally, my strategy, I always put something a little bit higher. So that way, if they come down, that might be exactly where I want it to be. Now, why are you requesting a credit limit increase? This is also a line that I feel like is very important. I suggest that you choose the option that you planned on increasing your expenses over the next few months, or the option I believe is you foresee an extra increase in your spending over the next few months for something that's coming up. That's my recommendation that you choose for selecting the reason why you're doing this request. And it says, we're asking the question to help Capital One create a better customer solution in the future. It also lets them know that with this higher amount of money that you're making, you are expecting to spend more money over the next few months. I believe that will give them a better idea of why they should give you an increase on this particular credit line. And I believe that it will help your chances. Now you'll submit this. It should be automatic. If not, you may get a decision where they may need more time to take a look at it. You can also call their reconsideration line. If you're denied, my recommendation is looking at the letter, because they will tell you why. And based on whatever it is that you get on that letter, you can make an adjustment. Those letters really do tell you the reason why they're not able to do it. Pay attention to what it says, read it thoroughly, and make an adjustment based off of what it says. If it says anything about your credit report, you'll definitely want to look at that. And like if it says you have low limit accounts, that's going to let you know you need to increase the limit on your other accounts. If you have any derogatory marks, you need to remove those. We have plenty of videos on here about doing that. Just make sure that you read the letter and take into consideration whatever it is that Capital One is saying. Okay. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please let me know if you used any of these strategies or implemented them on your Capital One credit line increase application, or if you did see an automatic increase after watching this video. I am going to link some other videos about Capital One that I've done in the past, especially if you want to know some information about the bucketing system. That is another reason why you may not be receiving a credit line increase. If you have a credit card like the Quicksilver or the Platinum, and at the time of applying for Capital One, you were just repairing or building your credit, that may answer the question as to why you were not able to get an automatic credit line increase. So I suggest checking that out. The cool part about that is there's information on how you can 3x your limit and actually get, go from something like a low 500 to maybe even 20,000, especially if you've improved your credit lately. So I definitely highly recommend that video. And if you have any other questions, please drop it in the comments below. Be more than happy to answer that for you. And again, thank you so much for watching this video, and you guys have a wonderful day.